Hello and welcome to another episode of Autogefühl. Today with me, AJ. Do you guys recognize this car? Well, of course you do. It's the all-new BMW X3. We had an extensive report at the world premiere event in Spartanburg, South Carolina that we attended just a couple months ago. So if you guys are interested in this car, you have to go and watch that video. We had an in-depth discussion with Calvin, who's the designer of this car, and he took us around the car and he explained all the little changes that he has made. And we also had a couple taxi rides, one on the racetrack and one off-road. And we spoke to the BMW experts, and again, they explained all the different changes and the improvements they have made to the drivetrain and the car and the frame. So you really have to check it out. But what we hadn't been able to do so far is actually drive this car. And that's where it changes today. So join me as I test this car on road to see what it's got. Are you interested? Come on, let's go. The front of the X3, I think, is where the biggest changes are most evident. The headlights are all new. This has the optional BMW adaptive LED lights. They have a hexagonal structure to, which harks to the older generations of the twin headlamp BMWs. A more modern, crisp, horizontal LED light for the fog lamps. And since this is the M40i or the M Performance Pack edition of the X3, we have a lot more angular and sporty and aggressive front bumper. And of course, the kidney grills, which are the all-essential BMW trademark, are much more bigger now. It just looks like a puffed up chest of a superhero in a superhero suit. That's exactly what Calvin, the designer, told me when we were talking about this. And if you guys look inside, and you will notice that there's actually two layers to this grille. Now that's an active aerodynamic layer, which closes the grille in case it wants to, reduce the amount of drag. And if the engine needs more air and cooling, then this inside layer opens up. So it's an active aerodynamic system. And overall, this car is about 1.9 meters wide. Here on the side, let's start with the front. This being the M40i has some active aerodynamic channels. Like for example, there's a channel over here in the front bumper to channel air across the side, and it comes out this way. But this air breather over here is just purely cosmetic. It is not a functional air vent whatsoever. And this car also has the M Performance Pack. So we get 20-inch wheels, really cool looking wheels, which has a dual tone scheme, a shiny metal color on the outside and some more darkened metal on the inside. And you have the M Performance badge over here. This also has an upgraded brake system, and you can see the caliper over there. The tires, by the way, are Pirelli P0, so really good traction. Although this is an SUV, it just still has the squared off wheel arches, but there is no black cladding. If you take the 30D or the 40D, the diesel engine options of this X3, then you have a black cladding on the wheel arches and along the bottom to give it a more off-road stance. But here, this is the same color as the body, so it kind of gives the impression that the car is a little bit lower, more hunkered down, more sporty. Speaking of which, this also has sports suspension, a active adaptive steering, and upgraded brakes. So this really is a performance vehicle. As we go down the side, you'll see the M Performance badge over there, a gray finish on the outside rear view mirror, and a very subtle design lines along the side of the bodywork, just to give you a little bit of hint that this is a little bit more muscular. There's some haunches and curves, which really plays with light and shadow to create a pretty muscular overall design. As we go towards the back, again, more squared off wheel arches, but there's a long bonnet in the front, thanks to this being a longitudinally mounted inline 6-cylinder engine. More on that later, but a long bonnet, short back overhang. This kind of makes the car look a lot more athletic. The car is 4.7 meters long, and this weighs about 1,880 kilograms. At the rear, at the top, we have a spoiler, and for some reason, this part of the car, especially from this angle, somehow reminds me of a Jaguar F-Pace. Do you guys think so? Let me know. But as we go further down, you see the panorama rear view camera. This is a very interesting camera. I mean, there's cameras in the front as well as a radar sensor, but this car actually has a panoramic three-dimensional view if you're going off-road. We will try to demonstrate that if we get the chance. But anyway, in the other video, we do show it, so you can check it out there as well. Another new thing for the new X3 are these rear lights. You also have the option for having them in full LED to give a more crisp look. But it's really cool to see that they're very three-dimensional, they're very tactile, they have their own curves and edges, and they really flow nicely with the back of the car. As we go towards the bottom of the bumper, well, the top section of this lower bumper is blue along with the rest of the car, but down here it's a little bit more gray and black glossy plastic. And finally, down here we have twin exhausts, and these are actual exhaust tips. They're not fake exhaust tips. So this is the actual exhaust, and the silencer is behind, and they sound really good. We'll show you that in a minute. And the shape is also quite interesting. It's a little bit trapezoidal, it's polygonal. It kind of looks like the brake caliper, or also kind of like the wheel arches. Overall, I think it's really cool. What do you guys think? Let me know. Let's take a look at the trunk. This has a sensor in the bottom, so you should be able to just kick and it should open. But the thing with this kind of technology is it never works when you want it to, and it's when the spotlight is on it. Anyway, automatic tailgate, very large trunk, parcel shelf can be pushed out of the way very easily, very rectangular loading bay with very little obstructions from this the wheel arches. We have two rails on the either side, which have these clamps that you can slide around, and you could also remove them if you don't need them. There are also top tethers for the seats in the back, as well as some more tether points over here. Of course, you can fold the seats down with the levers on either side. There's one over here as well, and the seats fold in a 60-40 fashion. Of course, there is also a ski hatch in the middle, so you can even have it as a 40-20-40. Let's look under this panel. There's a gas-charged strut, and you can even have a place to stow the mesh that you can install to block the rear passengers from accessing the boot. There's a place for your first aid kit, tire puncture kit, the usual stuff. The X3 currently comes with 3 engine options, starting with a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine, which makes 190 horsepower, called the 20D. Then there is the 30D, which is the 3-liter inline 6 turbo diesel engine, which makes 265 horsepower. And then we have this, the big daddy, the M40i, which is the M Performance engine, which has 360 horsepower, a whopping 500 Newton meters of torque. It's a inline 6-cylinder petrol engine with a twin scroll turbo. All of these cars have automatic transmissions, and the X-Drive as well, which is a four-wheel drive system, asymmetric four-wheel drive system. And the M Performance M40i car that we have here also has a drag coefficient of only 0.29, which is amazing and a class-leading figure. The interior of the new BMW X3 is a very inviting place, thanks to a large panoramic sunroof and very comfortable seats, although they are leather and we always prefer animal-friendly leatherette. These seats are completely adjustable for reclining, lumbar support and side bolstering as well. Not only that, the steering wheel column can also be adjusted for reach and rake. The overall dashboard is also very well laid out. All the buttons are where you expect them to be. The materials are top-notch. The fit and finish is also really good. The steering wheel is very small and meaty, has a nice grip, and also has paddle shifters on the back. In the instrument cluster, well, first of all, you'll notice that it's a digital dashboard, but there are 3-dimensional metal inserts which kind of emphasize the sporty character of this car, and I think makes it look a lot more elegant. You have 2 large speedometer and tachometer dials in the middle. The new infotainment system is also really nice. It has a 10-inch touchscreen, which can also be controlled with the iDrive console as well as gesture control. It has some new features as well, which you should check out in our other video. Moving down, the climate control, well, we have 3 zones, 2 in the front, 1 in the back, and the gear control lever with Sport, Comfort and Eco Pro driving modes. And on the right side, we have the iDrive control panel. The back seat of the X3, although the seats are very comfortable and can be manually adjusted for reclining, I feel that the legroom is not the base, even though the wheelbase has been extended. Here we have the key, very similar to the new ones, but this doesn't have the touchscreen information on it. But this is still keyless entry, so I go near this, it unlocks automatically. Don't need the key anymore. Put it away. The door opens really wide up here in the front. You have a really cool X, which is punched in to the side. Kind of reminds me of that movie, the Triple X movie. Have you guys seen that? Kind of looks like the one in that movie. Interesting patterns and details and textures on the door. Really good materials up here. A very technical textured inlay over here. A strip of aluminum effect plastic. This has leather, and we always prefer animal-friendly leatherette. It's also cheaper to have leatherette, but unfortunately this is only leather. Plastics down here are hard actually, but you have plenty of storage spaces. Getting inside is really easy. Thanks to this being an SUV, the ride height is raised, so you don't really have to stoop down to get inside. At the same time, since this is the X3 M40i and the M Performance suspension, it's not so tall that you have to clamber up into it. Roof is also really high, so that you have plenty of headroom. There's a big panoramic sunroof as well, which really lets in a lot of light. But even though there's a sunroof is there, you still have plenty of headroom. Seating position is pretty sporty, I would say, for an SUV, since the seat is fairly low. I have it in the lowest position. And like I was just showing you guys in the voiceover, it's fully adjustable for, you know, the base, the reclining, lumbar support, side bolstering. You can also extend the under thigh support as well for extra support and comfort. Steering column can also be adjusted for reach as well as rake, so you can find a very comfortable seating position. The instrument cluster is also very easy to read. It changes color depending on the driving mode that you've selected. It's very easy to switch between them here as well. You can see the colors are changing. The infotainment system is also right next to you, because you don't have to go too far from the steering wheel to be able to touch this. And of course this also has gesture control, which never works when you want it to work. But I would say, yeah, I don't really understand the use of a gesture control when you have buttons over here. Why do you need to go out and do this? I would say that's more distracting than just using volume buttons. But we don't have too much time to go into detail about the infotainment system. I apologize for that. Make sure you watch our presentation at the world premiere event. We take an in-depth look, but you have your usual things: navigation, connected drive, so it gives you information on traffic, weather updates, news. You can have some applications like Spotify, so on and so forth. Of course, all your vehicle status, and you can even have a performance display, the amount of power you're making. A lot of common things from the BMW iDrive system. Please watch our other video for an in-depth look at that. This also has a hotkey button to turn on all the driver assistance functions. There's so many of them: pedestrian active alert, collision warning, lane departure warning with steering intervention, lane change warning with steering intervention, side collision warning, give way warning, and they all have different sensitivities. You can have the medium, really intrusive, really gradual, so on and so forth. And as I mentioned in my other review, I really love the detailing that BMW puts in to the animations in these in their menus. It's so nice to see this attention to detail. I'm a big stickler for these little details, and I'm really happy to see them on the BMWs. The CD player over here, and to change the mode of your infotainment, so DAB digital radio, TV, online entertainment, AM, FM. This is also for your active traffic. Dual zone climate control for the front 2 seats with seat heaters as well. And down here, an inductive charger, USB port, 12-volt power socket, cup holders. You can close that away. And like I mentioned, this is the Steptronic Sport gearbox. It's a torque converter based automatic transmission. Your adaptive drive mode selectors for Sport, Comfort, Eco, Pro. And this is the front camera. So when you're driving, if you push this button, it gives you a front angle, which is really useful. Hill descent control, automatic parking, auto hold. And this is the iDrive system. You can scribble. For example, if you want to enter navigation, you can write on top of this. You can use this to rotate back and forth. Use this as a joystick to go up and down. And hotkey buttons. Finally, you also have a armrest, which opens up to have to show you a very large cubby hole. There's another USB socket, a light, and let's give it the shake test. Yeah, really solid. Let's check out the back seat. I said in my earlier review that the back seat was not really that spacious, and let's see if that's really correct or not in the production car. Well, it's good, but it's not great, I would say. Even though this car has an extended wheelbase, I mean, knee room is sufficient for a guy of my size. I'm 5'8" or 1.7 meters, and this is set to my driving position. It really is. Trust me, I checked that. But I can't really stretch my feet out too far under the seat, and you know, the seats are very straight. The back is very straight, sloping straight. So it hits my shin if I try to extend my feet under the chair. It's not too bad. And if you're in the market for a small compact SUV or, the size SUV, and the X3 gives you such a great driving dynamics. And I think you have to be ready to make a little bit of compromise in the back seat. On the plus side though, you have a manual adjustment to recline the back. So if you want to relax, have the sunroof open, it's pretty comfortable. And if you're a little bit taller, I think you should check out this back seat leg space. You also have air conditioning vents over here, an armrest with cup holders, which also doubles as a ski hatch. You have ISOFIX points for child seats on the outside too. You have a 12-volt power socket as well. And the middle seat is not too bad, actually. The base is relatively flat and the back is a little bit stiff, unfortunately, because of the armrest and the cup holders. But overall, 3 people back here should be doable. Headline figures: 3-liter inline-6 twin-scroll turbo petrol engine, which makes 360 horsepower and 500 Newton meters of torque. That's enough to launch this 1,880 kilogram car from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, or 0 to 62 miles per hour if you're from across the pond, to the speed in 4.8 seconds. And it has a low drag coefficient of 0.29, and finally a top speed of 250 kilometers per hour. Pretty impressive numbers, but then so is the price tag. This M40i is around 67,000 euros, and that's just the base price. If you dabble in the options list for the panoramic roof, the optional adaptive LED lights, etc., you're looking at something which is pretty expensive. If that's not your cup of tea, then there's also the 20D or the 30D, and the 20D starts around 47,500 euros in Germany. All right, since now we've covered the numbers, let's talk about this car and how it drives. The first impression is this car is playful. I think that's the theme of this car. It's just so energetic. It's like a party animal, You have that one friend who always wants to go out and party no matter how tired you guys are. If you have a semester or final exam the next day, it doesn't matter. This car just wants to get out and have fun. From the minute you push the start-stop button and the engine roars to life, it just starts crackling and popping and banging, and it's just a really fun roaring sound. Very different than the 6 GT that I also drove very recently, which was a lot more somber and sober and mature. And of course, I was talking to the BMW PR guys, and they were like, yeah, that's totally true. We designed the 6 GT to be a GT and a little bit more mature, but the X3, oh no, the X3 is all about having fun. And it's really, really exciting to see that a car in this segment is able to do something like this, because it has such a playful steering, it has such sharp dynamics. The chassis is a lot more rigid now, it's a lot more stiff, and it's a lot more lighter. And the X-Drive four-wheel drive system really helps with cornering ability. It has a lot of special torque vectoring type electronic programs, which really helps to sharpen the dynamics of this car. And the steering, being the progressive steering that we have on this car, is also phenomenal. I mean, even at slow speeds, it's very responsive, it gives you good feedback, but as you pick up the pace and as you start driving around and having fun, it really comes alive. It is very communicative, it's got a really nice grip to it, has good feedback. It's a little bit heavier than the 6GT that I drove, and I like that. I like a heavy steering wheel, at least when it's in sport mode. I want a car to have a very heavy, natural feeling steering response, and this car definitely does. We're in comfort mode right now, so the engine tries to maintain a lower RPM. It changes up the gear very quickly to maintain higher fuel efficiency. In fact, BMW claims a combined efficiency for this car of about 8.4 liters for 100 kilometers. And I don't think we're gonna see a number as close to that anytime today, unfortunately. Right now it's reading 17.5 liters for 100 kilometers. But of course, that is just because we just started off driving. And since I'm not trying to check the mileage right now, I say we switch from comfort mode to sport mode. What do you guys say? And you can see over here as well that there's two options for that. There's Sport Standard and there's Sport Plus. Plus you have an individual setting. I'm going to leave it in Sport Standard right now since I'm still on public roads and I don't want traction control to be completely off. I'm going to let the car take control in case I get into a sticky situation. Right now the engine becomes a lot more responsive. It's a lot louder. You can hear it on the inside right now. Braking is also fantastic. This has the upgraded M Performance brake package, so stopping power is a lot better. It gives you a lot of confidence. The chassis again is so tight, there is no flex, there is no wobbling. The steering is so direct and responsive. I mean, I think the steering is one of the most the highlights of this car. And it's in the sport mode, it's a lot more heavier. It's a lot more the rack is also a lot sharper, it's a lot faster now. So I don't need to really have too many rotations lock to lock. And you can just dive into any corner at any speed that takes your fancy. And it'll just grip and stick and throw you out the other end without making a fuss at all. Your tires are also really grippy. This car has the Pirelli P0 tires. Very tried, trusted, known brand of tires. So again, you don't have to worry about that at all. The engine shifts down very quickly, but I don't really mind. And every time you lift off, it crackles and pops and snarls and kind of sounds like it's farting, but I really like it. It's just so much more lively. But that kind of brings me to the next point. You know, this car is always on. You know, it's got that personality which is always in your face. And it's really hard to restrain it, even in comfort mode, or let's go to Eco Pro mode now. That's the third mode. This is where the car tries to be economical, and that's a laugh. I mean, come on. This M40i engine, really? Come on. It's not really that economical, is it? If you're really trying hard, I guess you can get around 9. I don't think you're gonna get that 8.4 that they claim, but it also gives you suggestions. Like, for example, it'll coast a lot more better right now. And if you don't need to be accelerating, on the heads-up display, it shows a symbol that says, hey, get off the throttle. So that also kind of gives you a little bit of coaching here and there to help you try to improve dynamics. The gearbox, of course, shifts up as quickly as possible. The throttle response is also fairly dull in this mode. So you're not unnecessarily, kicking down a gear, or you're not unnecessarily accelerating really quickly and braking and wasting momentum. So I guess in this Eco Pro mode, if you drive very delicately, you can get 8.5, 9-ish. And I think that's a very respectable number. And even here, like I was saying, it doesn't really let go of its playful, loud personality. And I think that can get a little bit tiresome after a while. For somebody who's not in their early 30s or whatever, somebody who doesn't consider themselves 18 at heart, might get a little bit tired with the louder engine, the slightly stiffer suspension. Because even right now, you know, this has the sport suspension. Even in this driving mode, you can already hear that my voice is breaking a little bit because we're driving on some pretty rough cobblestone streets here in Portugal, and it's not the most comfortable. So I would say you also test drive the 30D, because that also has a 265 horsepower 6-cylinder turbo diesel engine, which on paper sounds pretty cool, you know. So yeah, you're not gonna have that loud, sporty sound all the time, or that liveliness and that playfulness. But if you're really not into that, I guess it could even be a better option for you. Let's go through this village right here. And because this car is not as long as the 6GT, it's still within around 5 meters, it's fairly easy to navigate and maneuver inside city. If you're at slow speeds, you can also activate a front camera like so, which gives you a really great view of your surroundings, and in case you're going up close to some curbs or other traffic or pedestrians, you can really use this system to you know, kind of gauge the gaps and the distances and make sure that you're not hitting anything or scuffing anything. But yeah, on these narrow city streets, it's very easy to maneuver, it's quiet, it's very refined. It's a little bit bumpy. The suspension is not a soft suspension by any means, definitely not. But on the other hand, to make your life a little bit easier, you also have a heads-up display, for example, which gives you your speed. It also has a traffic sign recognition camera, so it tells you the speed limits, and if there's some other emergency or important notifications, it gives you that. It gives you commands for your navigation, so which turns are coming up, so on and so forth. The seats are also really comfortable. They're very adjustable as well, not as extravagantly adjustable as the 6GT or anything like that, but I mean, you don't really need all those crazy options. It has more than what you need, more than enough. Okay, now the roads are opening up a little bit. Let's go back into sport mode, shift down, and now let's see what this car can do. It really comes alive around corners. It's a little bit lively, a little bit playful. You can really use the car to get around corners, and it also has a little bit of yaw control, so it lets you slip the tail out a little bit in a four-wheel drift sort of manner. Of course, you shouldn't be doing that on public roads. The paddle shifters are also really useful to have full control over the gear you're in. Should probably slow down a little bit. There's a lot of traffic. Safety first, always. But I mean, such a great road, such a great view. The sound of the engine is just, it's intoxicating. It's so addictive. You just want to keep it in this power band, keep it revving high, and just hear those crackles and pops. Brakes really well, dives in. Body roll is not too bad. When I was in the passenger seat for the taxi ride in the US for the world premiere event, I did mention that the body does roll quite a bit, and it does. I mean, all said and done, no matter how much you try, this is an SUV, and an SUV has a tall body, higher ground clearance, which all means it has a higher center of gravity, which is not really a byword for sporty handling, now is it? But it definitely makes up for all of that with the steering and the sound of the engine. It's really so well tuned. It really is very addictive. I think I'm using the word really a lot and it's getting really annoying, pun intended, but it definitely is very exciting. Let's see, apart from that, the navigation is very easy to read. The screen is very large. It has a touch screen. You can also use gesture controls like this. See, it makes some noises. I really don't know. I don't think this gesture control thing is a very useful feature at all. I think it's more of a gimmick because I don't find the use in that. I would rather have controls over here on the steering wheel. And since they're already on the steering wheel, I don't find the logic that it's safer to release your hand and do something here. And if your co-passenger wants to, you know, play around with the navigation or the touchscreen, then they might as well just use the touchscreen. So I don't think it's very useful. So that's my opinion on that. Fantastic view of this beautiful coastline on the left-hand side. Oh wow, this is a beautiful place we're going to. I think in a moment like this is where car enthusiasts like you and I, everything just comes together. Great weather, great car, great roads. I wish the roads were a little bit more empty though. It's a little bit unsafe for me to drive fast. And there's a lot of cyclists and people stopping to take pictures. I don't blame them. The scenery is just drop dead gorgeous. But I wish I could just push this car a little bit. But I have driven this car earlier on the highway, and I can tell you that it is also very happy and is definitely at home on the highway as well. Has really good stability, it doesn't buffet, and it has good noise insulation, tire noise insulation, and you can also use the adaptive cruise control. It has lane departure warning, steering intervention, and you can also program these and individualize these systems to work with the sensitivity and the type of operation that you want. If you want something a little bit more sporty and abrupt, you want something a little bit more gradual, you can set the distance you want it to maintain with the cars in the front. It has blind spot monitoring, rear traffic alert, so on and so forth. You know the drill. You know all the stuff better than I do. Oh man, that engine, oh, this is a gem of an engine. BMW, kudos to you, take a bow. It's a fantastic engine. I wish they would put this in all the cars. This is a fairly reworked 3.0 liter inline six twin scroll turbo engine. I was talking to them, they worked pretty hard on this, and it's really doing a great job in this X3. So I would say if you're okay with spending 70,000 euros thereabouts, oh sorry, give me a second, I need to make a turn over here. So if you're okay with spending around 70,000 euros and you're okay with a stiffer ride, you're okay with a loud engine all the time. I mean, on the highway, the other point I wanted to make is the engine, it kind of gets a little bit drony. You know, you can always hear it thrumming in the background, even though you're in top gear and you're just cruising along and you've got the cruise control and you've got all of the systems, assistance systems working. It's still a bit, you know, it's not that relaxing. That's not a word that you would very easily associate with this car. It's not relaxing. So I guess that is the drawback. If you're not into that and you're like, hey AJ, you know what, it's all fun, you know, you're a journalist, you drive for a day or two on the roads on these twisty, beautiful locations, so you definitely like a fast car. But people who live with the car on an everyday basis, it gets too much. And I totally agree with that. In that case, definitely check out one of the diesel engines. Check out the 30D. I think you would want something with a little bit more power because this chassis is so capable. You know, it's stiffer, the X-Drive 4-wheel drive system, this Steptronic Autobox. They really are so capable. They have a lot of potential. And this M40i is definitely utilizing them to the fullest potential. But I think if you get the smaller four cylinder diesel engine, you're going to be left with wanting a little bit more all the time. So yeah, I would say it's a toss-up between the M40i and the 30D. And if it's a decision that you're going to make with your heart, then just stick to the M40i. I mean, it's just, you will not regret this. It's something that you will just really enjoy. Yes, the space in the back seat is still something that I'm not entirely happy with. I wish they would have paid a little bit more attention to that. This is a longer wheelbase. I guess they could have packaged it a little bit more cleverly. The engine should have a mode where you can really relax and let it cool down. You know, like let's put it back into Eco Pro mode. It's still, at this speed, of course, you can't hear it, but on the highway, even in Eco Pro mode, it really does have a little bit too much droniness for my taste. And with that, let's just take a look at the mileage in case we are coming closer to my estimated 9 or 9.5-ish number. No, we're nowhere even close to that. It still says 17.6 liters for 100 kilometers. And well, yeah, you saw the way I was driving. I don't think I'm going to get a better number for now. But how about I just shut up for a little while and I let you guys enjoy this beautiful scenery as we go all the way back down to the coast of Portugal to this beautiful location that I've set. How about that?
Good idea.
Good idea. Of course, in sport mode, yeah? Let's summarize today's drive of the BMW X3. Oh, it's very hot. Well, it is a hot car after all, especially this M40i version with 360 horsepower and that really joyful, spirited engine. It has such a playful character. I really liked it. But if you also want something which is a little bit more off-road capable, then the 20D or the 30D, the diesel engines with their asymmetrical X-Drive all-wheel drive system are also fairly capable off-road, as you guys can check in the other video. All in all, I think for this price point, if you want a compact SUV, which is a jack of all trades, which can excite you and be dynamic on a twisty road, at the same time carry 4 people with their weekend luggage, and when the time comes, be able to go off-road enough at least to do the job. All in all, it's a cracking car. Let us know what you think, put your comments down below. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. We always have updates and sneak peeks of what we're filming. And be sure to like and comment. See you guys next time.